for the speaker and for those who are listening. Yeah? But anyhow, I will try. Of course, Russia is a capitalist society which is hit by the global capitalist crisis very much like other capitalist societies. But at the same time, there are specific conditions which make Russia's situation in some ways a bit different and in some ways a bit extreme. And there are two sets of these specific conditions. One specific condition of Russia is that it is one of the post-Soviet states. In fact, not the only one, because people tend to forget that there are also states like Ukraine, like Kazakhstan, like Georgia, even like Estonia, which is now technically a member of the European Union. But if you go to Estonia or Latvia or Lithuania, you'll see a hell lot of difference compared to, say, Western Europe, even compared to the places like Poland and the Czech Republic, but especially, of course, compared to say, Sweden or Finland, which are neighboring countries. So you have the whole series of specific social and economic and infrastructural aspects which have to be taken into consideration in understanding the specificity of that kind of post-Soviet capitalism. And on the other hand, the other set of specific conditions is produced by the kind of global division of labor within which Russia has a role of a country providing raw materials and first and foremost energy resources to Western markets, most specifically to Western Europe. And in that sense, there is nothing unique about that kind of integration of a country into the global capitalist economy, but it is important that you have a semi-colonial type of integration combined with a semi-imperial type of political formation, because it's not only a very big country, it is still an important country and a mighty country with the ruling elite which has certain ambitions going far beyond traditional colonial elites or quasi-colonial elites. And it's not only just that it is, and it always used to be an independent country, but also it has its own imperial ambitions, and given the size of the economy, and given the importance of Russian exports, even though these are raw materials, that creates also economic ambitions for the newly emerging Russian bourgeoisie. Again, if we do not spend too much time on just discussing the previous development, the pre-crisis development, we still have to mention a few important changes. And of course, if we speak about the 1990s, that was a period of destruction of the old Soviet economic system and mass privatizations, which were completely illegal, even within the framework which was created by the post-Soviet Russian state itself. And that was the kind of permanent illegality, permanent irrespect of the law, which was nevertheless not only tolerated by the state, but in many ways encouraged by the state. And those who protested were actually repressed and punished by the state. So in that sense, the state itself perpetuated this state of illegality, the state of kind of plunder within its own country. But that came into a very serious contradiction with the needs of capitalist development at the later stage. Because yes, capitalist development does need a certain respect of the law, the rule of law, which is part of their property arrangements, which is part of their business deals and so on. So if you build up the new capitalist elite, which is based on plunder and irrespect towards laws, irrespect towards rules and so on, you end up facing a problem with the next stage of development. And at that stage, you have to discipline your own bourgeoisie, your own private business, your own elites. And of course, these problems existed in the West as well, and in every country during the so-called phase or period of primitive accumulation. Like if you look at this country, in Britain, if you look at the people who made the fortune of British capitalism in the, say, late 16th century, early 17th century, these people were not necessarily very respectable from the point of view of liberal capitalism, and just like Sir Francis Drake and others did not respect the property of the others so much, right? Or Henry, just Admiral Morgan and other nice champions of early British capitalism. But nevertheless, it took a whole period of time and a whole series of political and social transformations for these changes to happen, while Russian capitalism had to move very, very fast from this period of plunder to the stage of kind of discipline and the rule of law, or at least some kind of order, because even if you do not achieve the rule of law as it is supposed by the liberal theory. By the way, I have doubts about this kind of rule of law being achieved anywhere exactly the same way as it is described in the books. But anyhow, just if you fail to come any close to this kind of liberal ideal, still you need certain rules and certain regulations to be obeyed at the daily level. Otherwise, the whole thing doesn't work out. So, and that was exactly the meaning of the shift from the Yeltsin period to Putin period. So the meaning of Putin was very much about disciplining the ruling elite. And in that sense, actually, Putin was actually welcomed by some people in the opposition, and even some people on the left, because technically he was very much in conflict with certain elements of the new capitalist elite as they emerged out of the 1990s. Well, he had to put Khodorkovsky in jail. He had to kick out Berezovsky and Gusinsky. So 3 of 7 most powerful oligarchs in Russia were punished. And that created a lot of confusion. Because on the one hand, liberals, the people who were excited about the perspectives of building a capitalist economy in Russia, they suddenly became very angry that a Russian state was going after some of the biggest capitalists in Russia. So they said, well, this is about Russian state getting back into the Soviet period, just, well, undermining the achievements of the 1990s, undermining the property regime and so on. And that actually pushed quite a lot of liberals into opposition, because every attack on capitalists they treated and understood, interpreted as an attack on capitalism, which is not exactly the same thing, as we know. On the other hand, on the left, also some people were confused and saying, okay, there was a conflict between the state and some of the big capitalist oligarchs, so supposedly it means that the state is kind of moving to the left, becoming progressive. In fact, nothing like that happened. And by the way, the lack of shift to the left is very visible in terms of Russian state not doing anything in terms of making its social policies more progressive, in terms of taxation, for example. On the contrary, for example, under Putin, we consolidated the system of taxation which was based on flat income tax. So if you take top income tax, private individuals' income tax in Britain, I think it's about 40% at the top level, if I know correctly, which is considered to be rather low, according to the previous standards of the Keynesian period. In Russia, it's 13%, and it's flat. So it's I pay 13%, and Mr. Abramovich who pays the same 13%, right? So there are no difference. Equality, you see.